The Suns just fired their head coach, Earl Watson. And so much of this angers me. There are so many little things that are a part of this that just drive me nuts and really, really make me angry. The Suns have terrible, terrible management. Oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. I'm not saying Earl Watson is a good coach. In fact, I don't think Earl Watson is a good coach. But Earl Watson has been a victim of just horrendous, horrendous management. Time and time again, the Suns have done dumb things and made bad mistakes. The Suns have a terrible culture. And here's why I'm not blaming Earl Watson. In fact, I'm blaming Eric Bledsoe, and I'm blaming the ownership and the general manager. Because Eric Bledsoe signed, in 2014, Eric Bledsoe signed a contract for 5 years, $70 million. So again, Eric Bledsoe, 2014, signs a contract, 5 years, $70 million. He signed a contract, decided to stay in Phoenix. He made a choice to be there. He made a conscious decision to be in Phoenix and sign his life away to Phoenix. Another thing you need to know to understand this story, where I'm coming from, is that last year, the Phoenix Suns also tanked. The Phoenix Suns let's see what they do. They sat starters and they played their young guys. They were not trying to win at the end of the year. So to take away from that, you can't blame Earl Watson for losing last year because you weren't trying to win games. That wasn't your objective. And then the other day, Eric Bledsoe, this guy that I really don't like anymore. I never really cared about him before. I didn't know who he was. But now I'm like, oh, Eric Bledsoe, I don't like you at all. Eric Bledsoe tweeted, I don't want to be here. And he's had a bad attitude all year. He's been asking for trades. He clearly does not want to be in a Phoenix Suns uniform. But Eric Bledsoe tweets, don't want to be here. And an hour later, Earl Watson is fired. Eric Bledsoe has a terrible attitude. This is what I hate about the NBA. This is what drives me nuts. It's my biggest criticism of the NBA. The difference between the NFL and the NBA is this. We give all these immature young guys a ton of money, and then we give them a ton of power. See, in the NFL, if this has happened in the NFL, if there was an NFL player who was criticizing his franchise and saying he wanted out, we would criticize the player, and the player would be reprimanded. Maybe not monetarily, but just the league would not treat this guy very kindly, and the media would not side with Eric Bledsoe if Eric Bledsoe was an NFL player. But the NBA players have too much power. And who is Eric? Eric Bledsoe is not LeBron James. Eric Bledsoe is not Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. Who is Eric Bledsoe to get a coach fired? Are you kidding me? Eric Bledsoe, the guy who was an all-star one time, whose name I can't even recognize. I can't even see the guy in my head because he's not very relevant. He may be a good basketball player, sure, but Eric Bledsoe is going to determine what you do with your franchise? Look, if LeBron had done this, if LeBron had said, I want out, fire the coach, and maybe he did, but if LeBron had done it this way, this passive-aggressive, awful way, what would we do to LeBron James? We would heavily criticize. In fact, last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers, before Tyronn Lue was head coach, LeBron said he wanted the coach out, and we blasted LeBron. We said, LeBron, he has too much power. We don't like that. But why does LeBron not get away with it, but Eric Bledsoe does? Why do we hold Eric Bledsoe to less of a standard? It just makes no sense. If LeBron James can't get away with it, Eric Bledsoe surely shouldn't be able to get away with it. And I understand being frustrated. I understand if you're Eric Bledsoe being in a situation and in a franchise and in a culture that you don't like. I switched schools in high school. I left a bad high school that didn't win a single game the year before. I went to a better high school with a good culture, good coaches, and a good program, and won games, had fun. I understand how Eric Bledsoe feels, not wanting to be there. But when I was in a bad culture and a bad team at a bad high school, you know what I never did? I never went on Twitter and was childish and mean and talked bad about my coaches. I put my head down, I worked, I had a good attitude, and I wanted to turn it around. And then eventually when I gave up, I just left. I never trashed anyone. I never made fun of anybody. I never called for anyone's job. I did think the head coach should have been fired, and he was. And we moved on. We got a better coach at the old school. But I never said that. See, what Eric Bledsoe did going onto Twitter, that is childish and silly. That's like high school girls. In fact, I was with a girl last night who was showing me a group message where this girl's like, look, my boyfriend's so mean, and puts their personal like text between her and her boyfriend onto a group chat for like 30 girls to see. That's childish and immature. You don't air your dirty laundry that way. There's a better way to go around. Is Earl Watson a good coach? I don't know that Earl Watson is a good coach. I really don't think so. Probably not. That, the Suns are terrible. But what do you gain by firing Earl Watson 3 games into the season? That's the other part of this. So first of all, this is why I don't like why I don't blame Earl Watson, why I blame the upper management, and why I blame Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe does, I don't like the coach. And the upper management says, I'm siding with the player, not the coach. And upper management made a terrible, silly decision I don't understand. What do you gain by firing Earl Watson 3 games into the season? What do you know now, 3 games into the season, that you didn't know a week ago? Absolutely nothing. It's like getting married. And the first week of the marriage, like, you know what? This isn't working. I'm going to bail. The honeymoon was great, but, now that we got back and you like Greek yogurt and I don't, it's over. What? You didn't know that before? Like, I don't know. I fundamentally don't understand. I think the Suns have horrible management. They need to, it's a mess. The Suns are a mess. And I will never, regardless of how good your coach is, when you fire a coach 3 games into the season, it's not just the coach's fault. There are structural errors and management errors and all kinds of bigger issues within the Suns organization.